does point out that in later Judaism, the Feast of Pentecost became known as an anniversary of the giving of the law. And we'll come back to that. And I don't want to choose between one or two of these options. I believe that all these things are there for us in the text to show us this was a harvest feast, number one, to show us this was a feast that celebrated also the giving of the law at Mount Sinai, because this was a new beginning. There was fire on Mount Sinai, and there's fire on the day of Pentecost. The new beginning, God is bringing about a new community. This time the law was not going to be written on tables of stone, but on the heart, as God's Spirit is working in the heart. And then also, I believe, in that this baptism took place in the temple itself, as we shall see when we come back to this in a later session, that the Holy Spirit filled the house where they were sitting. That is the temple of the Lord, showing that it's also a picture of the dedication of the temple. God now isn't coming to dwell in a temple made with hands, but He's coming to dwell in human hearts and bring all the signs of His wonderful presence. And so Acts chapter 2 tells the story of Pentecost, how they were told to stay in Jerusalem until they received the promised power, how they obeyed that, and how Jesus kept His promise. And at the day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit came. Now look what happened. The room where they were sitting was the baptistry. Now, I want you to know that the word for room there, or the word for place, is the Greek word oikos, which means house. It means house. And the temple is the house of God. And so this was not so much the upper room. You have a choice. Either the disciples were filled in the upper room, or they had left the upper room and were filled in the temple grounds, probably in the Solomon's colonnade, where Jesus preached to the crowds and where Peter addressed the crowds. But there's one thing for sure: if they were filled in the upper room, they soon got out of there, and they were there in the house of God, proclaiming the word of the Lord. But certainly this was at the temple, in the temple, or near the temple. And I believe from this word oikos, the place where they were sitting is the temple itself. Upper room, yes, that's where they were praying, but certainly the effects of the Holy Spirit were seen in the temple, describing the coming of God back to His people. So the room, or the place where they were, was the baptistry.